sometimes people say, okay, does this mean it's going to cost me more money? Is that how this is all going to go?
Oftentimes. I mean, we at the commission, we regulate investor-owned utilities, and when...
Stop right there and tell us what that means.
Okay, that means like Missouri American Water. We actually regulate, since we're talking about water and sewer companies, we regulate about 75 companies in the state of Missouri. Most of them are very small.
You decide what they can charge.
We give them I won't get too deep into the weeds, but a rate cap. So we say you can earn an amount to recover your prudently incurred costs, and you can make a profit for your investors.
And so, is this likely going to cost us more money going forward? We've got a lot underground that we've talked about needing fixed.
It is, because, and right now, Missouri American Water, for example, they have what's called an infrastructure system replacement surcharge that they can utilize in the St. Louis region that they, of their company. And this allows them to recover a certain amount of infrastructure replacement annually, and do this without bringing a general rate case before the commission. It may be a little too complicated, but basically...
Well, we just saw that in action on the video just a second ago.
Yeah.
They're replacing before it gets broken.
Yes, and this allows them to replace a certain amount each year. They were given, I guess the commission was given the authorization to grant what's called an ISRIS, infrastructure replacement, to this utility in this area, and so they can begin replacing so much per year. This started in 2003, and they've been replacing, I don't know, Mr. Cartman would have to tell you how much infrastructure a year, but...
Well, and as he was just saying at the previous table too, we paid for it, we've maintained it, but we haven't ever invested in replacing it. But is that our only option? And I think you'll say no, that there is another
It's a great option, but at Heartlands Conservancy, we work to try to promote green infrastructure, and Mr. Holscher talked about that earlier. Green infrastructure is essentially where you try to protect, you try to restore, or you try to mimic natural resources, water cycles. It's a way to...
Where it goes back into the ground and gets kind of that natural filtration and it's back in the water
Instead
table.
of piping it, you're trying to bring it back into the ground, you're trying to put it into wetlands so that it can lose any contaminants that are in it, so they can recharge groundwater, things of that nature.
Do you agree with what he was saying, that people kind of get on board with that? That in and of itself is perhaps an easy sell to some degree.
I think we're at the early stages of it compared to Chicago or other regions, but I think there is a human dimension that we can bring into this and get people excited about it, because it does offer other opportunities for recreation and fish and wildlife and all those other things that people value.
You said something just before the camera turned on this conversation, that we are wasteful. What do you mean by that? And who's the we you're talking about?
We as a society, I believe, are wasteful. We live in the Midwest, so we have been blessed with an abundant, safe, reliable water supply. As we're learning tonight, unfortunately, some of that infrastructure is 100 years old or older, and we need to be a little bit more proactive in replacing that aging infrastructure, and there's a cost associated with that replacement. The good news is we're not in a crisis mode yet. This is still a manageable problem. My concern is if we don't, the longer we wait, the more unmanageable this problem becomes, and I don't think that we should burden the next generation or the next generation for a problem that we have identified, and we have the ability to start fixing this problem.
Because if we don't, what's at stake?
If we don't, somebody's going to fix it someday, and it's going to cost more the longer we wait.
Yeah, when you look at water and wastewater infrastructure, it's the most expensive to replace because everything's underground. It's not like stringing wire. It'd be similar to natural gas, but water is everywhere. Natural gas isn't necessarily. And then it's the only utility that we ingest, and all the water that goes through those pipes has to be able to be ingested. And you can take things like leakage, and I forgot what the figure is, it's in the report, but there's a certain amount of leakage, there's stormwater infiltration into the sewer system that causes our sewage treatment plants to have to clean a lot more water than they really should. So we are wasteful, and but it seems like more inventions are coming along to help conserve water, like in the toilets and things like that. An awful lot of water is used there, but it's a multifaceted effort to do all this.
It's not a commodity. We kind of expect that water it's like a human right almost, it feels like, but yet then there's a lot of cost associated with it. Is that a hard connection to make with people? Do they know what their stake is in this?
It's a human right, but we also don't understand, or it's hard to understand when you have the Mississippi River just adjacent to us in an extended drought, how much that system can drain out and not have that available water. So we have to plan for those extended drought periods, that we have water for all the uses for navigation, energy production, and public water supply, and everything else. And it's hard for people to grasp that because we see water everywhere here.
And Terry Jones from UMSL, in that report that you're referencing, said there is no sense of urgency. I think it was something like 60-some-odd% of people and 70-some-odd% of businesses even admit that they take it for granted.
Yeah.
Certainly.
That's a hard place to start a conversation about changing behavior, I would imagine.
Definitely. Another thing I have a hard time wrapping my brain around is when people complain about their water bills. I think tap water is a great bargain. It's on average less than a penny a gallon. The average home uses, maybe somewhat wastefully, 200 gallons per day. 200 gallons per day at a penny a gallon, that's $2 a day.
Are we paying too little?
That's a great bargain.
Are we paying too little?
I mean, it's always that balance, because we're not looking at the need for water and wastewater infrastructure in a vacuum. We're also dealing with increased electricity costs because of environmental regulations and things like that, which are all necessary. But I think people do take it for granted. They think that water, traditionally a lot of folks just the well water, and it was pretty easy to treat. But treating water and getting it to your home is pretty complicated. I was a city administrator in the city of Festus for 4 years, and when we had a new water treatment plant, and the water that was delivered to the homes was they could drink it, everything was fine, but when it went through the old pipes, it came out looking like iced tea for a while, and people.
Did it taste like iced tea?
It didn't. A little sugar may have helped, but it's not easy. It's not easy to get water that has all those qualities, that no smell, it has no taste, and all those things. It's just not as easy to do as people oftentimes think. So it does cost something.
More than $8 billion needed over the next 20 years. Yearly budget of St. Louis County is less than $1 billion. Like $600 million or something. That's a lot of money.
It's staggering. Yeah.
Well, we're a little bit behind the curve right now, so the longer we wait, the further behind we get, and that number is going to keep increasing.